Hey everybody, welcome to Always Bored, Never Boring. Today we're going to be doing a quick unboxing and mini review type thing for Warhammer Underworlds Shadespire Magore's Fiends. This is one of the latest expansions that came out for Shadespire along with the Fast Riders, which actually completes the first cycle of Shadespire releases. With this, there's been 6 expansions plus 2 factions in the base game, so there's now 8 factions out in the world and a whole heck of a lot of universal cards that can be mixed and matched between them. And yeah, so I've just come in from mowing the lawn, so excuse me if my fingers look a little bit green tinged or whatever, but I've been doing some gardening stuff and I literally have green fingers. I've done my best to scrub it off, but I do apologise for that. But anyway, yeah, this is the second faction of Corn dudes. Let's have a look at the models first, and then we'll quickly go through the cards, and we'll go from there. I will let you know that I haven't had a chance to actually use these guys in a game yet, but and in fact, I'm pretty much looking at these cards for the first time with you. So, yeah, all new stuff. Here's a miniature. Right, as with all of the other Shadespire miniatures, this is a push fit miniature. I will say now, and we will look at a couple of examples, these latest 2 expansions are probably the worst examples of Games Workshop's efforts to do push fit miniatures. I'm not overly happy with the results of how they went together in terms of being push fit. I'm very happy with the look of them. They look absolutely amazing. They have the incredible Games Workshop detail, and they're very dynamic and very exciting. Yeah, we'll get to that in a minute. Anyway, I'm just going to quickly show you the miniatures. I can't remember the name of these guys. They're red. You'll have noticed they're red. This may be a minor problem for people who don't paint. It shouldn't be, but they are the same red colour as the Blood Reavers, which is the other Khorne expansion which came in the base set. So if you have these guys against the Blood Reavers, these are Blood Warriors. But if you have the Blood Warriors and the Blood Reavers at the same time, you may feel it looks a little bit too samey on the board, but I don't think it's a major issue, but it's something that non-painters may be concerned about, or should be aware of at least. The other thing to note is that even though this is a Khorne faction, it is not the same warband as the Blood Reavers from the core set. So the faction specific cards, if I just grab one, the faction specific cards have a different warband symbol in the corner, so you cannot use these faction specific cards with your Blood Reavers from the core set and Vicky Verka. So a few things to be aware of. Other than that, pretty miniatures. Right, that was one of the guys. I can't remember their names. This is the leader, Magore. Very cool miniature. Really cool. Went together kind of like a Kinder Egg toy, which was quite fun. And he's got a great big orc skull. He's got actually a selection of skull trophies. He's a trophy hunter. But one of them is an orc skull, and that's quite nice because you see so many human skulls on Games Workshop stuff. It's nice to see a skull for something different. You don't get it as often as you would think for. But they're constantly beating up any old race they come across, so that you would think that they would have quite a selection of different skulls. He's got a mouth in his tummy space. Look at that. You can actually see it's got tonsils and everything. And he actually does have an upgrade card that allows you to attack with that mouth, which is kind of gross. But yeah, that's chaos for you, being all chaosy. This model went together, like I say, kind of like a Kinder Surprise toy. It had a back piece, and then the head section went inside with the inside detailing of the mouth, and then the arm went on, and then this front section pushed on, and then the base went on. And it goes together relatively well, but there is some pretty serious gappage on the shoulder there. But that's it, really. I mean, all of the way that the layers fold over each other means that you don't see as many of the gaps as you might otherwise. But I like him. Then there's this fella, other bloke, as I like to call him. He's got a gore fist, the same as the two sort of minions in this force have gore fists, which are cool little. They're like shields, but they've got spikes on, so that you can defend yourself. And then, as you knock aside the enemy's blow, you can stab them in the face. Ah, happy times. Lots of human skulls on the base there. No orky skulls in there. Really nice miniature, really good. Lovely, lovely flowing hair. It's like a L'Oreal advert going on there. But I do love the ridiculously big corn helmets. They're fun. Right. The last character in the warband is this Riptooth, little doggy. Have you noticed the problem? Yeah. Just push fitting this guy together. He basically, the body's 2 sections and then the head's 2 sections, and he goes together like absolute crap. He is going to need gluing, because the head's not properly secure, and then it's going to need green stuff to fill that gap in. If you're not painting this model, I mean, why they chose to have it constructed in that manner, with a really great big seam down the middle of its head that doesn't go together very well. I mean, I tried, I filed it down a little bit, and I trimmed it, and I just couldn't get it to go any better than that, really. I mean, you can sort of squeeze it, but yeah, it's a dirty, great, big, horrible gap. And also, look at the feet. There's only one peg holding it onto the base on this foot here, and the toes are sculpted onto the base, and the legs don't stay down. If I can show you that, you know, you can push them down, then you let go and they spring back up again. You know, that's going to need glue in there to hold them down in that position. Yeah, it's just, it didn't work. Whatever experimentation they were trying with this miniature, it's a lovely miniature, and when you've, you know, sealed the gaps and everything, it'll be fine. But as is, as a piece, if you're going to use it like that without glue, and you're assembling these miniatures without gluing them, it's going to look rubbish. And that's a bit of a disappointment, because he's one of the coolest things to have happened in one of the war bands, because, you know, he's a doggy. Woof. Anyway, all right. Character cards. That's the entire warband. So you get your leader, Magore, Gory, Magore, and then you get his little friend Riptooth, and then you get two minion characters. They all inspire by having a successful attack action, and Magore's pretty lethal. He's causing 2 damage, and he has cleave, and then if he upgrades, it becomes 3 damage with cleave, and he gets extra movement too. So he's pretty good. Riptooth is fast, and when he upgrades, he gets faster. He can do 3 damage once he upgrades, and he gets extra dodgy. But there's one thing to note, that he also gets cleave on criticals, but he cannot have upgrades that are attack actions. This is a thematic rule, isn't it? Because otherwise you would have you could upgrade him with weapons, and you could have him firing and throwing axes, and, you know, using spears and things, and it would seem odd. So he is not allowed attack upgrades. And then we have Gartok Flayskull and Zarkus the Bloodsighted. Classic Games Workshop corn names there. They are identical. They have the Gorax, or the weighty Gorax, which is no different. And then they both have a Gore Fist. And the Gore Fist is cool because if you get attacked, It says, during an attack action that targets this fighter and fails, the fighter cannot be driven back, and you make this attack action. It must target the attacker. So it's 3 attacks, which is cool, and in keeping with the lore of the Gore Fist as it is used in Age of Sigmar. And they upgrade. Oh, I've got my cards mixed up now. When they upgrade, they go to being slightly more pokey with their axes, but other than that, there's no real change. One of the things, though, that this is something that I've said before about Shadespire. I love Shadespire; it's brilliant. It's one of the best things to have happened to games for ages. But Games Workshop really needs to work on the wording on the cards and standardizing the wording on cards. For example, look at the cards here for Gore Fist, the reaction. Without even reading the text, you can see that they're formatted differently. The rules are exactly the same. If you get attacked and the attack fails, you can make that attack. You can't be driven back. But it's worded completely differently on the 2 cards. It's exactly the same rule with exactly the same in-game effect, but worded differently. That shouldn't happen. Then, if you have a consistent rule, it needs a consistent format. It needs a consistent way of, When I first looked at those cards, I thought to myself, oh, hold on, are those rules different? And I had to read them really carefully to see that, no, it's the same rule, it's just worded differently. That shouldn't be happening. There should be some kind of consistency across your cards. It just makes sense, really. Anyway, I've been talking for a long time, haven't I? Let's have a look at some ploys. We're going to start with possibly the finest ploy ever. I haven't looked at these cards properly. I've just basically broken the shrink wrap and sorted them into ploys, upgrades, and objectives. But I did notice this card while I was sorting them, and it's awesome. Play this after an adjacent enemy fighter makes an attack action that drives a friendly fighter back. Push the attacker into the hex the friendly fighter was driven back from. Just brilliant. If I could take a whole deck of these cards, I think I probably would, because how many times in Shadespire do you get attacked by an opponent, they push you back, they drive you back, and then you're out of position and not able to retaliate for whatever reason. In this way, if they drive you back, you grab hold of them and you pull them with you. Brilliant. That's just good. That's just good card design, and it's funny, and it's going to really annoy some people. Blood Frenzy. Play this after an attack action or ploy that takes a fighter out of action. Roll 1 extra attack dice for the first attack action in the next activation. Yeah, Khorne is all about all the killiness. So as well as inspiring through successful attacks, a lot of the ploys seem to be reactions that key off of attacks of some kind, whether either killing someone or blooding them in some way. Both hammers and swords are successes for that attack action. So that means your hammers, your swords, and your crits are all counting as hits. And then if you're supported as well, you basically, you're almost guaranteeing some damage output there. Blood Slit Ground. In the next activation, enemy fighters have -2 move. That's good. We like that. I think there's certain armies that focus very much on moving about, and stuff that can stop them doing that is good. Plays after an attack action. There we go again. That takes a friendly fighter out of action. A friendly fighter adjacent to the attacker makes an attack action. It's quite convoluted, but yeah, basically freebie attacks. Someone's been killed, so there's some extra blood on the ground, and so the Khorne boys get leery. Continue the slaughter. Play this after an attack action or ploy that takes a fighter out of action. Note, it's a fighter. Friendly, enemy, doesn't matter. The first attack action in the next activation has +1 damage. So yeah, there's an obvious theme with this deck, and it's a hammer over the head, basically. Demonic Resilience. The first friendly fighter who suffers any amount of damage only suffers 1 damage. That's cool. That's if you're expecting someone to take a big hit, then and that's good. But no, it's not a reaction. It's not a case of take the damage and then reduce it. You have to kind of preempt it. And with those sort of cards, more often than not, they're a deterrent rather than actually something that comes into effect. I mean, if your opponent has moved into a position and you know he's going to charge in and hit you with like a strength 4 attack, you play that and he's going to rethink his strategy, because he's not going to waste that charge coming in knowing he's only going to do 1 wound on you. Right, Fountain of Gore. Play this after an attack action or ploy that takes a fighter out of action. All friendly fighters have +1 defense. Cool, yep, let it rain. Furious Inspiration. Choose a friendly fighter, they become inspired. That's good. I mean, I think any card that allows you to inspire instantly is good. I don't know how useful that's going to be in Magore's Warband. They inspire when they have a successful attack, and you know, I think with the other cards they've got that they can use, successful attacks are going to be relatively easy to come by. But I suppose, you know, getting an early inspiration on your leader is never a bad thing, is it? Glory to Khorne. Roll 1 extra attack dice for the first attack action by a friendly fighter. Yeah, that's pretty standard. Horrifying Howl. Choose an enemy fighter that is adjacent to a friendly fighter and push them 2 hexes. That's pretty standard stuff. To the victor, the spoils. Play this after a friendly fighter's attack action that takes an enemy fighter with a wounds characteristic of 3 or more out of action. Draw 3 power cards. Cool. Kill something with 3 wounds, get 3 power cards. That's nice. I mean, it's always good to have those extra power cards to play with. Yeah, I don't know. If you're facing a warband that's got a lot of 2 hit point characters, I don't know. I wonder whether it might have been nice to have the card grants you power cards equal to the wounds characteristic of the thing you killed, so it could grant you 1 or 2 if you kill something of lesser value, just to give it a little bit more utility. I don't know. I mean, that if you do it, it's cool. 3 power cards is awesomely powerful. Maybe sort of being able to get 2 power cards is after killing something is too powerful. Really, you need to go that extra mile. But I don't know. Second Wind. Choose a friendly fighter that made a charge action this phase. In the next activation, they can be activated if they moved. Okay, everybody's taking this card, aren't they? I mean, that you don't get to do double charging, but you can charge, which allows you to move, attack, then play. You've got Second Wind, and then next turn you can attack again. Which, especially if you've got some range weaponry on you, that's a cool card. That's a card that I can see being used a lot, because, you know, if you fluff your charge or whatever, so quite often, you know, you're really in a bad spot if you fluff your charge. But this kind of gives you that second chance, like that. That's a good card. Flickering Step. Roll 8 dice. Choose a friendly fighter and push them up to a number of hexes equal to the number of crits rolled. That's interesting. Normally, a push card is select a character, move them 1 hex. This gives you the potential to move, well, potentially up to 8 hexes, but you know, your chances of rolling 8 crits is next to nothing. But there is a chance of fluffing your roll and not moving at all. But you're only getting a move on a crit, and the crit is a 1 in 6. You're rolling 8 dice, so you're averaging ever so slightly more than 1 hex, aren't you? So, you know, you're sort of gambling on maybe not being able to move at all, quite frequently just getting that 1 hex move that you would get from any other card that gives you a push 1, or with that chance of maybe going 2 or 3. I mean, if you rolled 8, you'd be laughing all the way to the bank. You know, you've got free reign in the board at that point. It's interesting. It's one of those cards that seems initially really exciting, like, you know, oh, the potential to launch all across the board. But I think in reality, quite often you're going to end up moving 1 or 2 spaces, which isn't quite so dramatic, but still. All fighters' move characteristics are reduced to 1 for the next activation. Right, so it's not all move is reduced to 1. It's their move characteristics. So I would... I don't know. What do we reckon? If someone plays a card that gives them +2 move, Their move characteristic is 1. Would they still be able to move 3 with invisible walls in play? I think they would, because it's affecting the actual move characteristic. It's not their move, it's the actual characteristic on the card. So I guess that's how I would rule it. Still, interesting, as there's nothing like being able to screw up someone's plans by preventing all their team from moving. We like that. Mischievous Spirits. Taking it in turns with your opponents, starting with you and going clockwise, move each objective 1 hex. Okay, a bit of crazy randomness or semi-randomness. You get to move some stuff. Your opponent gets to move some stuff. You could be helping him. You could be helping yourself. Would I use it? I don't know. Sometimes it's quite nice to be able to nudge an objective 1 space close to you or whatever. You can, if you've fallen short of your objective, you can nudge it into you, get your objectives scored. But then you could potentially be giving your opponent some useful stuff to do as well. I don't know. It's an interesting card, because I do like cards that they help you, but potentially have the benefit to help your opponent as well. My turn. Play this after an attack action. Push your friendly fighter. Make an attack with them. Okay, yeah, it's just standard. Get a return fire. Tainted Vitality. Remove 1 wound token from each fighter who has at least 1 wound token. Good card for the Aurochs. The Aurochs inspire when they take a wound. So quite often you're kind of getting them in positions where you want them to take a hit, take one on the chin. So if you can do that and then play Tainted Vitality, they've inspired, but they get the hits back. Only thing to note is that it's each fighter, not each friendly fighter. It's everybody on the board. So it can be good if you're taking an absolute pounding, but if you're playing something like Stormcasts, who are quite difficult to wound in the first place, you may not want to be playing a card that's going to give them wounds back that you've fought hard to take off. Hidden Paths. Choose a friendly fighter that hasn't made a move action this phase and is on an edge hex. Place them on any other Rewind. Place them on any other edge hex. They're considered to have made a move. That's a cool card. I mean, that's free reign to teleport to any other edge space like that. That I can see getting used quite a bit. Useful for stuff like the Skellies are quite objective based, but sometimes they can be tricky to use because you've got to focus a lot on those movements because they have low movement values. Something like that can allow them to run around the board. Cool. Reflected Injury. Choose a friendly fighter with at least 1 wound token and an adjacent enemy fighter. The enemy fighter suffers damage. Cool. Teamwork. Play this card during a friendly fighter's attack action before rolling any dice. Push another friendly fighter 1 hex. Okay, so that's the Ploys. There's some good stuff in there. There's some fun stuff. Upgrades. There's some fun stuff here as well. I should point out that with each of these sets of cards, I'm starting with the faction-specific ones, and then going into the universal ones. So keep note of that. Some of these cards are faction-specific. Demonic Maw. This is for Magore's little tummy space. It's a new attack action. If this attack action succeeds, remove 1 wound token from this fighter. He basically eats a chunk off of the target and gets a wound back in return. That's cool, It's nothing like eating up other people's vitality, is there? Brutal Charge. Roll an extra attack dice when this fighter makes a charge action. That's cool. Charge actions always seem really cool on the card, but you always have to remember you don't get very many charge actions in a game. I mean, effectively, any one character is going to have a maximum of 3 charges in a game normally. I mean, there might be a way to do it another way based on powers and things. I can't think of any off the top of my head, but anyway, so you're usually getting 3 charges. This is an upgrade, so you may not get this until turn 2, maybe even turn 3. Once you're in turn 3, is it worth spending an upgrade on 1 extra dice for 1 single charge on 1 single character? Them's the questions. It's one of the things I like about Shadespire. It's such a tight game that you've got such a limited number of actions, and things that in other games would be huge and would be super overpowered or whatever. It becomes something that you get to use once, and it can change the game. It can flip the game on its head, so it's still powerful, but you may only get to use it once. So you look at the card and you think, yeah, that's crazy, but isn't always. Furious Charge. When this fighter makes a charge action, both hammers and swords are successes. Again, that's just a really good way to sort of almost guarantee you're going to be causing some damage. No Respite. During an attack action or ploy that will take this fighter out of action, you can make an attack action with them. Okay, right. Yeah, just keep on chugging. Predatory Leap. This is Riptooth. When this fighter makes a charge action, they can move through other fighters, but they must end in an empty hex. That's cool. Anything in this game that improves your mobility it's almost essential to have. I think even if you're not going for chasing objectives and things like that, just the ability to have the extra freedom to move around the board. It's a game. I've always said that it's not really a game about killing other people. It's a game about being in the right place at the right time. So anything that grants you extra mobility, yeah. This is specifically for Zarkus. This fighter's attack actions with a range of 1 or 2 have +1 damage. Another Riptooth. This fighter's successful attack actions with a range of 1 can push the target 1 hex instead of driving them back. So yeah, this is quite cool. Normally, you get driven back directly away. This gives you the chance to actually chuck a character in a different direction. Move them somewhere else you'd rather they were. Setting up a combo maybe. Magore, Trophy Hunter. When this fighter takes an enemy fighter out of action, gain 1 additional glory point. That's a cool upgrade. Magore, I said he was Trophy Hunter. He had the skulls in his hand because it's the leader character with the orc head. Yeah, he's going to be up in people's face. He's going to be doing a lot of hitting with his axe, and he's going to be doing it anyway. He's going to be fighting anyway. Why not give him a card that grants him additional glory for doing it? It's very thematic. It's exactly what you would expect from Blood Warriors, and that will definitely be going in my deck. Unshakable. This is Riptooth again. He shakes other people, but he's unshakable himself. During an attack action that could drive this fighter back, you can instead push them 1 hex. So he can push someone rather than drive them back, and he can push himself rather than being driven back. Cool. Nice doggy. Wrathful Blow. All of this fighter's attack actions have +1 dice. Pretty standard. Tethered Spirit. During an attack action or ploy that takes this fighter out of action, roll a dice. On shields or crits, place them on any starting hex in your territory. Yes, another one of those saved from death cards. Warcry. When this fighter makes a charge action, that attack action gains knockback 1 for this activation. Deathly Fortitude. -2 move, +2 wounds. That's interesting. I was just saying that this is a game about movement, and here's a card sort of defying that and saying, no, this is a game about standing on the spot. I suppose if you've got someone holding a spot on an objective, or you're down to 1 man and you've got a card in your hand, an objective that says if you've got 1 man standing at the end of the game, you score a ridiculous amount of objective points, a ridiculous amount of glory. Giving them +2 wounds and -2 move is a good call, especially if you actually want to keep them out of trouble, so you're not planning on charging with them, you're not planning on moving with them. You just want to keep them out of the way and make sure they live. Nice card. Unparalleled Strike. Rolls of hammers are considered to be rolls of crits for this attack action, and it actually hits on hammers. So basically any success with this attack is a critical success. Formless Key. There's always one of these keys. Basically scores your objective for holding a specific objective. Oh, if this fighter is holding an objective, normally it's a specific objective. This is just any old objective. Hey, relic. There's a relic in every single expansion, and there are 6 expansions, so 1 relic per expansion. So with the release of Magore's Fiends and Fast Riders, that completes the set. So you can actually build your deck around having relics if you want. It's quite fun. They have a cumulative effect, so you stack them all on one character, and if you get up to 6 relics, you actually gain an action, which is gain 4 glory points. If you can somehow get all of the relics on to a character by the 3rd turn, you can just use your action points to harvest glory, and you're going to have just a ridiculously high score. Difficult to pull off, but if you can, funny. Trusted Defender. You can reroll 1 Defender dice for this fighter when they are the target of an attack. Yeah. Dark Darts. Range 3. 1 damage with Cleave. Cool. Ranged attacks are pretty powerful in this game. Because like I say, movement is powerful. And yeah, having cards that let you attack at range is good. Normally the ranged attacks are low damage output, but can be good for if you have an objective that says, wound a target, or you just need to pick off something that's only got 1 hit point left, things like that. All good. Shade Glass. There's a Shade Glass weapon in most of the expansions. I think I'm gonna say all, but I don't know off the top of my head, but it feels like there's a Shade Glass card in each expansion. They're weapons that basically they're powerful, but if you get a critical hit, if you get a success, they're discarded. So this one's no different. When this attack action is successful, discard this upgrade. On a critical hit, this attack action has +1 damage. So you're potentially doing 4 damage. Yeah, it's nice. I'm not sure. I'd have to compare it against like the Shade Glass sword and things like that to see whether there's a reason why you would take one over the other, or whether it's a case of you take both. I'd need to look into that more. Ghost Blade. Range 1, 2 hammers, single damage. When rolling defense dice, only rolls of a crit are successful for the target of this attack action. This attack action can never cause more than 1 damage. That's really cool. If you've got an opponent who is relying on a lot of armor, Ghost Blade is going to ruin his day. You're never going to cause a lot of damage with it, but if you can chip away at someone who's got a lot of armor, that's nice. Objectives. Okay, I've been talking for over half an hour now. I don't even know what I'm saying anymore. Bloody Annihilation, obviously these are the Khorne specific ones again, or I should say Blood Warrior specific ones. Score this in the end phase if all enemy fighters have been taken out of action. I think that's pretty standard really. All the better to slay them. Score this immediately if all friendly fighters are adjacent to a different enemy fighter. Yep. So yeah, like I said, Khorne, they're very much about the fighting and the killing and the stabbing and the maiming. So a lot of these cards are going to be about scoring points for living up to what you expect the Blood Warriors to be doing. Score this immediately if Riptooth takes an enemy leader out of action. It's weird that it's specifically Riptooth. He can do it. He has the potential for a big lot of damage output, and if you've put some of those things like Predatory Leap on him that allows him to get into the right position, I think you would have to make sure that you've got the right cards for him. You would want to make sure he's upgraded, has Predatory Leap to get into position, and then can do it. But yeah. Khorne sees us. Score this immediately if your warband takes 2 or more enemy fighters out of action. Yeah. Kill again. Score this in an end phase if at least 2 fighters from each warband are out of action. Okay. No escape. Score this immediately if 3 or more of your fighters made a charge action. Rivers of Blood. Score this in an end phase if all surviving fighters, at least 4, are wounded. Right, so you need your whole team still alive, but everyone has to be wounded. I believe there's another card that I've seen called Shade Gale, which actually inflicts 1 wound on everyone on the board. If you can play that at the end of the game, at the end of a phase, score this in in an end phase if all surviving fighters at least 4 are wounded. So you can do it at any phase. Yeah, that could work. You know, play Shade Gale, injure everybody, score Rivers of Blood. Oh, it's all surviving fighters, not your fighters. Oh, look at that. Okay. Yeah, but yeah, Shade Gale will do that. Yeah, because the Shade Gale damages everyone. So that is a nice little combo. Save the best. Score this in an end phase if an enemy leader is the only surviving enemy fighter. For a duel, an epic duel. Show strength. Score this immediately if your leader takes an enemy fighter out of action. Accept inevitability. Score this in the third end phase if all of your fighters are out of action. Right, extra bonus just for getting a paste in. Chosen. We're into the universal ones, by the way. There. Chosen champion. Score this in end phase if a surviving friendly fighter has 3 or more upgrades. Score the chosen champion. Good card to have in conjunction with if you're using the relics deck, where you have the 6 relics and you're stacking them all on one leader, on one character. If you stack those relics on him, then score chosen champion. Heroic feat. Score this immediately if friendly fighter's attack action succeeds when their target has 2 or more supporting fighters more than the attacker. That sounds convoluted to get into that position. Killing Ground. Score this in end phase if at least one fighter is taken out of action in the preceding action phase in enemy territory, in your territory, and in no one's territory. Alright, okay, so just all over the shop. Again, tricky to kind of pull that off. Massive Assault. Score this immediately if your fighters deal 7 or more damage in an action phase. That is relatively easy to do with the right upgrades. Masterstroke. Score this immediately if an enemy fighter is taken out of action by an attack action made as a reaction by your warband or a reaction made by your warband that causes damage. Okay. Multiple Fronts. Score this in an end phase if your warband dealt damage to 3 or more enemy fighters in the preceding action phase. Poised to Strike. Score this in an end phase if at least 3 friendly fighters are adjacent to the same enemy fighter. Yep, that's just ganging up. That's not fair. Pure Carnage. Score this in the third end phase if 7 or more fighters are out of action. Yep, that would probably work quite well with Khorne guys who are going for high death toll. Victory after victory. Score this in an end phase if you scored 3 or more other objective cards in this round. If you've got a deck full of small objectives, yeah, that's possible. And the last card, War of Attrition. Score this in an end phase if the same number of fighters, at least 1 from each warband, are out of action. Okay, right, okay, it's just like a balancing thing, weighing up the scales of justice. Right, and that's that. Okay, so, sorry, I've gone through every single card there, and that's taken quite a long time. Obviously, it was my first look at most of them, so I've not had an opportunity to really consider how they're going to work in various different strategies. It was just my initial thoughts. I hope those were interesting to somebody. I could immediately see how some of those cards could create some nice synergies with other cards. I'm already thinking of how I can use some of those in existing decks that I've got. And yeah, I think overall, there's some really good cards. The miniatures look really good, but the push-fit nature of them just it hasn't come together quite right on those ones, particularly on Riptooth. There's some gaps and things that aren't pleasant. But overall, I think it's a good expansion. It's a good expansion. It's like all the other Shadespire expansions. It's loads more options, and these expansions are really cheap. I mean, I'm getting them online for I think £14 each, and then when you consider something like Magic the Gathering charges £4 or £5 for a booster pack of, I mean, how many cards do you get in a booster pack? 15 maybe? And you're getting 60 cards here, plus your high quality Games Workshop miniatures, which in this particular case do need a little bit of love and attention to look their absolute best. Yeah,